Max Joel. I am the director of the New York Sun program. And today we will be presenting recent updates to the New York Sun program manual and some associated program updates for New York Sun. I'll be joined today presenting by my colleagues Al Beatty and Emily Chesson. And we also have on the line supporting this event my colleagues Sarah Jayanthi, Dylan Cunningham, and John Necroto. Next slide, please. So before we begin, this webinar is being recorded. A copy of the recording and the slide deck will be posted on the New York Sun Resources for Contractors page. We will also be sending out those links in an email. Everyone is muted, so please put in your questions via the Slido Q&A feature on the side. Click the dots on the right-hand corner. We'll be addressing questions at the end. Please feel free to put those in at any time during the presentation if you have questions. And we'll also pause for a couple minutes at the end to get any more questions and also a review that's come in. Finally, if you have problems with uh, audio or anything like that, you can contact Dylan Cunningham at the email address shown on screen. Next slide, please. So our agenda for today, and again, these are all elements of the recent program manual updates and related changes. So first, we'll be talking through the current status and updates to the Solar Energy Equity Framework blocks. We'll be talking about the Inclusive Community Solar Adder, other incentive adders, the other set of program manual updates that were made in the last version of the program manual, some new information or more detailed information about prevailing wage requirements, and then we will have time for questions. I'll remind everyone that the program manual has recently been updated, and that updated file can be found on the contractor resources page. And again, today I'll be presenting as well as my colleagues, Emily and Al. Next slide, please. So I'll kick it off with this slide and then hand it over to Al. Um, as is reflected on the New York Sun dashboard, the upstate CNI CEF Block 1 is full and closed. Block 2 is now open. It's a 400 megawatt capacity total. We've used, I think, between 50 and 60 megawatts as of right now. The dashboard is live and you can refer to it. This block is sort of new special rules in that only projects that are participating in statewide solar for all are eligible. So they're both eligible for the SSFA adder, but also you just have to already be in SSFA to secure any incentive at all at this point in upstate CNI and in the CEF Block 2. So this isn't a change in process, but for everyone's reference, as a first step, you must go through the utility process to enroll a project in SSFA before applying to the current upstate block. A corollary of that is that projects in this block are not eligible for the ICSA. This is in contrast to block 1. Once you're in block 2, you have to do SSFA, and if you leave SSFA, we will unfortunately have to terminate all funding for the project, not just the SSFA adder, but also the prevailing wage adder, plus any other NYSERDA incentives that are associated with the project. However, for those projects in the block, the prevailing wage adder is still available and really mandatory. And also the beneficial siting adders, such as the brownfield adder, are still available. And on the right-hand side, we have a little graph showing how the incentives stack up, really demonstrating that there is no change for an SSFA project. The total level of NYSERDA funding will be identical in Block 1 compared to Block 2, and those projects are also, of course, receiving the same compensation level based on the utility in which they're located. So this was a deliberate decision based on NYSERDA's analysis that we're really at sort of a steady state with project economics for the time being, and we did not want to change anything. Okay, and let's take it to the next slide, and I can hand it over to Al.
Thank you, Max. On this slide, I'll go over which projects are eligible to apply for the ICSA. The table here shows eligibility for different types of projects, but I do want to note that this eligibility only applies while ICSA funds are available for the project's region. ICSA capacity is separate from capacity reserved for megawatt block or SEEF block awards. And I'm going to also review the current ICSA capacities in a forthcoming slide. But as the table shows, all previously approved megawatt block awards are still eligible for the ICSA as long as they are in approved status and, as with any project, demonstrate in their ICSA application that they will meet the ICSA program requirements. All incoming applications to remaining megawatt blocks as applicable are also eligible to apply for the ICSA once they are in approved status. So the exception here is for upstate CNI megawatt block awards because that block is closed, so no new applications would be coming into it. Upstate SEEF Block 1 awards in approved status are eligible to apply for the ICSA if they elected ICSA at time of application. If an approved SEEF Block 1 project elected SSFA at time of application but wishes to switch to ICSA instead, they are eligible to apply for the ICSA provided that they can supply confirmation of disenrollment from the SSFA tariff from the utility and notify NYSERDA of the switch. This kind of switching between SSFA and ICSA for SEEF Block 1 projects is allowed only one time, and the change must be requested before invoicing. So as Max said, the CNI SEEF Block 1 has closed upstate, and CNI SEEF Block 2 awards may not participate in ICSA, but must instead enroll in SSFA, which means effectively that there is no longer a pathway for future upstate CNI projects to participate in ICSA. Next slide, please. Effective today, an ICSA upstate dashboard is available. Again, it was taken down for a bit, but is now back up on our dashboards and incentives website that displays the status of the available ICSA capacity. The dashboard shows the total megawatt capacity of all ICSA applications that have been submitted or approved. So for ICSA applications, there is a total of 600 megawatts capacity set aside for upstate projects applying to the ICSA. This includes older megawatt block awards as well as SEEF Block 1. So as of now, as you can see in the snapshot there, about 41% of the total upstate ICSA capacity has been allocated as of today, with about 375 megawatts of upstate ICSA capacity remaining. In the Con Edison region, there is a total of 40 megawatts of ICSA capacity set aside, with approximately 20 megawatts of that allocated as of today. A similar Con Edison dashboard is forthcoming that will show the current available capacity so that you can also check that live. As a reminder, projects must apply separately to the ICSA after receiving either a megawatt block or SEEF Block 1 award. If ICSA capacity has been exhausted before a project submits its ICSA application, the project will not be able to participate in the ICSA. If a SEEF Block 1 project elected ICSA at time of application, but ICSA capacity runs out before that project applies to the ICSA, the project will need to switch to SSFA in order to realize any other funds attached to its SEAF block award. And next slide. One final note on ICSA and relatedly SSFA. This slide summarizes the application and invoicing processes for Upstate CNI SEAF Block 1 awards as they differ from the megawatt block model. SEAF Block Upstate SEAF Block 1 awards elected either ICSA or SSFA at the time of application. And if for any reason the project needs to change its election after having been awarded, it is allowed to do so one time before invoicing. SEAF Block 1 projects that elected SSFA at time of application needed to prove that they had enrolled in the SSFA tariff with their utility. On the other hand, SEAF Block 1 projects that elected ICSA must submit a separate ICSA application to reserve their ICSA capacity. If you have a SEAF Block 1 project and plan to apply for the ICSA, we encourage you to do so with ample time for NYSERDA review and approval ahead of your customer acquisition timeline. If you have one of those projects and you have any questions about the ICSA program itself, please reach out to me. Approved SEAF Block 1 ICSA projects will submit their SEAF Block 1 invoice in tandem with their ICSA commercial operation milestone. NYSERDA will review the submitted ICSA CO milestone and confirm that minimum ICSA requirements have been met before approving the SEAF Block 1 invoice. And then as a final note, the SSFA project path column in this slide also applies to SEAF Block 2 projects, which again are not eligible to participate in ICSA, but as they will be participating in SSFA, the application and invoicing project for those SEAF Block 2 projects remains the same. Next slide. Thank you. I'll hand it back to, I believe, Emily.
Yes, thank you, Al. All right, so the remaining part of the presentation, I'll be covering information on incentive adders, other program manual updates, and prevailing wage requirements and resources, and then we'll get to questions. So the first update we wanted to provide on incentive adders is that we have expanded the types of sites that are eligible under the brownfield landfill adder. So currently the existing sites that are eligible are New York State Department of Environmental Conservation brownfield cleanup program sites, closed solid waste landfills, current or former hazardous waste facilities, New York State inactive hazardous waste disposal sites, and mines. And so a new site type that's now eligible for the brownfield landfill adder is former solid waste facilities regulated under 6 NYSERDA Part 360. And these sites are eligible, assuming that the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation has issued written confirmation that the site has ceased all waste operations and has completed all closure activities, including but not limited to the removal of all products resulting from waste processing and the decontamination of all equipment and structures involved in any aspect of waste management in a manner acceptable to the DEC, and also that the ground-mounted solar electric system will not interfere with any ongoing closure, monitoring, or enforcement activities. And all of this information can be found in the program manual. So when you are submitting a project application for this incentive adder for this type of site type, we would require to see written documentation from the DEC that demonstrates these confirmations. Next slide. So a few other updates on our incentive adders. We wanted to clarify that incentive adders like the prevailing wage adder or the brownfield landfill adder, they're only available to projects that received a megawatt block or SEAF block award. So you have to receive one of our base incentives like the megawatt block or the SEAF block in order to take advantage of the adders. We also wanted to clarify that upstate non-residential projects that were awarded a megawatt block award 1 through 10 are eligible for the SSFA adder at 7 cents a watt. And we also wanted to notify contractors that for the affordable solar residential incentive, we've updated the escalation rate for PPAs, leases, for the monthly payments to from no greater than 1.5% annually to no greater than 3% annually. And a separate email did go out regarding this. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us. Next slide. Okay, so now I'm just going to go over some other updates. These are not related to specific adders. So we have updated the system size cap for non-residential systems in the upstate and Long Island region. We've updated the system size cap from 750 kW DC to 1 megawatt AC. However, the incentives are only available for the first 750 kilowatts DC of that system. So just to illustrate what that means in practice, so if you look at the table below, the first system is a 750 kilowatt DC system. The incentive rate is 25 cents a watt. Under the old rules, the system would be eligible for a total incentive payment of $187,500. Under the new rules, it would be the same. It'd be the same payment amount, an incentive amount. Now for a 1000 kW AC system or 1 megawatt AC system, it'd be eligible for an incentive rate of 25 cents a watt. Under the old rules, those systems were ineligible. Under the new rules, the system would be eligible to participate in the non-residential program for upstate and Long Island, and the total incentive amount would be $187,500 because the incentive is capped at the 750 kilowatt DC. Next slide, please. A few other updates in the program manual. So we have a new rule related to project inspection timeframes. Contractors in full status are required to schedule their C&I project inspections to occur within 90 days of the project being marked complete, or they can be at risk of moving to probationary status. And so we just really want to ensure that projects are being inspected close to their completion date and aren't waiting for a while for those to take place. For expanded solar for all category B projects, we wanted to clarify the disenrollment process. So for these projects, to disenroll from the program, the project must provide written notice to the utility and NYSERDA and follow the terms laid out in the utility tariff and executed expanded solar for all participation agreement. And then finally, we've approved a new shading software, Artemis, which can be used to produce the required shading reports for residential and non-residential projects. Next slide, please. A few more updates. When submitting applications, you'll see that we removed the requirement to submit documentation of the interconnection application submission date for projects 1 megawatt AC and larger. We've also added a requirement for projects enrolling in SSFA to provide the SSFA participation agreement from the utility. So you'll see this as a required document slot. And we've also updated the full assignment forms, which are on our resources for contractors page. If you go under project application guidance, application tools, you'll see the full assignment forms, and these have now been updated. So please use these new forms going forward as you submit full assignments. Next slide, please. Okay, so over the next few slides, I'm going to review the prevailing wage requirements for solar PV projects in New York. So there's two types of requirements that solar PV projects might fall under related to prevailing wage. One is statutory requirement, and this is going to fall under New York State Labor Law, Article 8, Section 224D. And the second is a regulatory requirement, and these are going to come from the State of New York Public Service Commission through orders that apply to the New York Sun program. Next slide, please. So to first cover the statutory requirements for prevailing wage that some solar projects might fall under in New York. So New York State Labor Law Article 8, Section 224D requires covered renewable energy systems, including solar PV projects 1 megawatt AC or larger, to pay prevailing wage or enter into a project labor agreement during project construction. So what does this mean for New York Sun contractors? Basically, those of you with projects that received an NY Sun incentive award for projects 1 megawatt AC or larger on or after July 1st, 2024, you're considered to have covered renewable energy systems for the purposes of New York State Labor Law, Article 8, Section 224D. So therefore, you're subject to the prevailing wage requirement as a matter of law, whether or not your project was awarded an NY Sun prevailing wage adder. So you're going to be required to pay prevailing wage to laborers, workers during the project construction period. New York State Department of Law is responsible for enforcing the statutory requirements under New York State Labor Law Article 8. So while we are available to provide information resources for official answers of whether your project is considered a covered system, please contact New York State Department of Labor with your questions, and we've provided their email address on these slides, as well as on the resources for contractors webpage. Next slide. So to comply with these statutory requirements for covered solar PV projects, we want to just review the main steps that contractors should be taking. So the first is contractors need to register with New York State Department of Labor before submitting any new construction bids or commencing new construction work on a covered renewable energy project. So that's going to be any solar PV projects 1 megawatt AC or larger that were awarded NY Sun incentives July 1st, 2024 or after. And failure to register could mean that there would be penalties that are described in Labor Law 220I. And you can find more information about the process of registering on the DOL website, and can also reach out to them with questions. The second step is going to be obtaining an original prevailing wage schedule and a prevailing rate case number from New York State Department of Labor for your specific project. Information on how to request an original wage schedule can be found on the DOL website at the link on the slide. You can also find generic prevailing wage schedules by county, which are basically going to give you the prevailing wage rates for different types of labor. And so you can look at those, but you do need to submit a form called PW39 that you can get through the DOL website to obtain your specific project wage schedule and your prevailing wage rate case number. On our resources for contractors page, we have published instructions on how to fill out that form called Form PW39 to receive your wage schedule and your PRC number. So you can refer to that if you have questions as you are filling that form out. Next slide. So the third step you'll want to take is ensure you're paying prevailing wage or entering into project labor agreement to all laborers, workmen, and mechanics performing on-site construction activities for a covered project, whether through long-term or short-term employment prior to the project in service date. And then the fourth step is, as of January 1st, 2026, covered projects, so solar PV projects 1 megawatt AC and larger, need to submit electronic certified payroll records every 30 days to the New York State Department of Labor through their certified payroll portal. It's an electronic portal that you can sign into during the project construction period. To do this, you will need a prevailing wage rate case number, so that PRC number that I mentioned in the previous slide, which you will receive when you fill out your PW39 form for your original wage schedule. And the DOL has developed a lot of resources to help contractors understand these requirements, has some recordings and is also offering trainings and webinars if you would like to attend one, so you can check it out via this link. So just some questions we've received from contractors to date since this rolled out, of just examples of timing of construction and whether a project would be required to meet the electronic payroll requirements. So if your project completed construction before January 1, 2026, you're not required to meet this requirement. You don't need to submit electronic payroll records. If your project construction started in June 2025 and will end in May 2026, the project would need to submit payroll records every 30 days, beginning in January and ending in May. The project does not need to submit payroll records for months prior to January 2026. Projects start construction after January 1, 2026. You must submit electronic payroll records to the Department of Labor every 30 days during the construction period. And again, for questions, you can contact them via the email on this slide. Next slide, please. So now I'm gonna go over the prevailing wage regulatory requirements that solar PV projects may be covered under. So for NYSUN contractors with projects 1 megawatt AC or larger, with New York Sun incentives awarded between April 14th, 2022 and July 1, 2024, as well as older projects that elected to opt in to receive a prevailing wage adder, are subject to prevailing wage requirements pursuant to Public Service Commission order and the NYSUN participation agreement. So I think many of you on the webinar are aware, but we offer contractors with projects 1 megawatt AC or larger that have been awarded a base incentive, the prevailing wage adder. So that is there to help with the cost of meeting the prevailing wage requirements, and projects are eligible to apply for that. Next slide. So to comply with the regulatory requirements, which have been made into New York Sun rules, program rules, the following will need to be adhered to by contractors. So you need to pay New York State prevailing wage or enter into a project labor agreement for construction activities associated with project development and installation. And at the time of invoicing for the project's commercial operation payment with NYSUN, you need to substantiate compliance with our prevailing wage requirements by submitting quarterly certifications of compliance for each quarter that construction took place, completed by a New York State licensed certified public accountant, and quarterly prevailing wage certification letters for each quarter that construction took place, completed by an authorized representative of the contractor. And templates for these letters can be found on the NYSUN Resources for Contractors website. Next slide, please. So just to highlight some of the new resources that have been added to the prevailing wage adder section under Resources for Contractors. You can find the compliance documents that need to be filled out and submitted at the time of commercial operation for the NYSUN requirements. We've updated our frequently asked questions to incorporate the statutory requirements and provide some more information on those. And we've also included some helpful links to the DOL's various web pages to help comply with the statutory New York State DOL prevailing wage requirements. Next slide, please. So with that, we're done with going through the content. So we are happy to take some of the questions that have come in.
All right. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Emily and Al. I'll jump in with I'll give Emily a break and jump in with some first set of questions. We have a general question about statewide solar for all and whether there's been a resolution of whether SSFA subscribers or projects can meet the criteria for what I'm sure is referring to the federal bonus tax credit uh, um, requirements. So the answer is no, we do not have a resolution on that or really a clear path to a resolution. I'll note that I believe some of the industry groups are working on the issue. So I didn't encourage folks who are interested in that or the person asking the question to connect directly with the trade organizations. A more granular question about SSFA. The question is whether the SSFA adder of 12.5 cents a watt only applies to C blocks 1 and 2. That is correct, and that is the full SSFA adder for C blocks 1 and 2. For older projects in the megawatt block, such as block 21, there is still a 7-cent SSFA adder available. So block 21 and earlier, 7-cent SSFA adder, CEF blocks 1 and 2, 12.5 cent SSFA adder. Let's see. We have a question about whether hydroelectric projects are eligible for New York Sun incentives. The answer is no. Only solar electric projects are eligible. We have a question about the inspection scheduling time frame requirement and whether extensions are available. They are available in special circumstances. I guess, for example, had an inspection been scheduled for one of the days, we had a blizzard recently, we certainly wouldn't have held that project to the time frame requirement if that inspection needed to be rescheduled for when the weather was better. But please, if you're in a situation where your project may need an extension, please reach out directly to your project manager or NYSERDA. Really, the commercial industrial PV email address would be the best place to start. Okay, so question about sort of a twofold question. Part one is for SSFA projects, is subscriber acquisition left up completely to the utility? Yes, that's correct. Enrollment is purely through the utility. And it is only for low-income households enrolled in the utility energy assistance programs. There's sort of a second part to that question about whether other households, people who aren't in the energy assistance programs are still eligible to subscribe to community solar. So the answer is very much yes. There are a lot of community solar projects open in development, in construction. We're probably going to see the pace of kind of construction and new projects coming online and people being subscribed to new kind of general market, mass market projects has not really slowed down very much and is probably going to continue for at this pace for at least a couple of years. The limit now is new projects in development seeking NYSERDA incentives upstate are limited to those projects that will be doing SSFA. But there's been no sort of change or shut off to kind of community solar as a sort of normal operating thing. Subscribers move away, new subscribers sign up for those spots, new projects come online. That's all still open. A question, or maybe just a need for clarification. There was a question about whether enrollment in statewide solar for all had a county level maximum. There is not. Basically, in each utility, every resident who is enrolled in the utility's energy affordability program is enrolled in and receives credits from statewide solar for all. It's really kind of a component of the energy affordability program. And there's also no kind of regulated limit on how much statewide solar for all or solar or CDG in general that can be built in a given county or geography. As we've discussed, there are limits on how much funding is now available for additional NYSERDA incentives for those projects, but that is also not sort of divided up by county in any way. We have a couple questions that are sort of about broader regulatory and policy items, different parts of the value stack and so on. Not to minimize the kind of importance of those issues, but that we're not really set up to discuss them on this call today. So we're really going to focus on responding to questions about the the program manual changes and the items discussed on this webinar. So I guess the final one, I'll take a couple last quick ones that have come in. One is about the floating solar adder. The floating solar adder is still available, but again, for upstate commercial industrial scale projects, the only project that can receive a New York Sun incentive of any kind are those going through SSFA. So a project that is, floating on a reservoir and enrolled in SSFA can come into CEF Block 2. They can receive the SSFA adder, the prevailing wage adder, and also the floating solar adder. But that is the only path for a commercial industrial scale, above 1 megawatt AC project upstate. And then I guess not finally for this whole webinar, but for me, before I take a break and turn it over to Emily or Al, question about can incentives only be applied for by New York Sun participating contractors? The answer is yes. If you can refer to the contractor resources part of the web page for a lot of very detailed information about how a solar developer can become a New York Sun participating contractor. All right, I'm going to go on mute, and I think I'll hand it over to Al, if you're ready to address a couple of questions that came in on ICSA.
Yes, thank you. So I see a question asking whether the ICSA capacity available now is only for non-resi or if it's open to CNI as well. So ICSA capacity, as shown in the posted dashboard, is available for CNI projects that already have an approved megawatt block award or CNI CEF Block 1, as it is also available to non-residential megawatt upstate projects that either have already received a megawatt block award or will be receiving the award. So any upstate project that has received a megawatt block award or a CEF Block 1 award in approved status can apply to the ICSA, and that dashboard sort of doesn't distinguish between CNI or non-residential. They draw down from the same set aside. This is the only one I see for me, so I'm going to hand it over to Emily.
Great. Thanks, Al. So I'm gonna go over a couple of the prevailing wage questions that have come in. So one of them was asking if it's a new NYSERDA requirement to file a separate quarterly prevailing wage certification letter completed by an authorized representative of the contractor. No, that's not a new requirement. That's been required for quite some time. There's been 2 letters that needed to be filed at the time of commercial operation invoicing. One was a letter from the contractor certifying they paid prevailing wage for all the quarters that construction took place. And then second, a letter from a New York State certified public accountant that certified that the project paid prevailing wage during project construction. So that's not new. So if you've already been awarded a prevailing wage adder and started construction, you are required to comply with these 2 requirements if you would like to receive your prevailing wage adder. If you have any questions about complying with that requirement, you can feel free to reach out to us, and we are happy to have a discussion. This question is about meeting the prevailing wage adder reporting requirements. Can you provide context on the addition of the independent accountant report as an alternative to the quarterly CPA certifications? Sure. So we received several requests from different contractors, from the CPAs that were supporting them with meeting this requirement, requesting if they could use the independent accountant report template instead of the quarterly CPA certification template. We reviewed the independent accountant report template with our legal, and were able to get comfortable with it and understand that it met the goal of that requirement, and so decided to make it an available template for contractors to use to meet the CPA certification requirement. So another question is, are there any resources on the website for New York CPA firms that will be performing the audit on prevailing wage compliance? As far as I know, I don't believe we have any specific resources for CPAs performing the prevailing wage audit. If there are questions that CPAs have, we can feel free to send us an email to the community solar inbox, and we can see if we can answer those questions. So another question came in: are large, greater than 1 megawatt AC behind the meter solar projects on schools or industrial facilities in upstate New York eligible for the prevailing wage adder? They would be eligible as long as they are greater than 1 megawatt AC.
Just to add to that one, I'm not sure if the implication was sort of like whether or not they're participating in statewide solar for all. And I guess if behind the meter, they probably wouldn't be. So just to repeat, only projects that are participating in statewide solar for all. So at this point in time, can receive any NYSERDA funding. And that's a requirement of the April 2025 Public Service Commission order. So we've shaped our program rules around that those requirements in the order. So I think the answer is probably no, unless it's a sort of a special, or well, I guess if it's behind the meter, yeah, the answer is almost certainly no. And I think we're seeing a couple other come in. There was a question about whether the quality assurance manual, if that has also been updated. No, I don't believe so. That manual is also occasionally updated, but I don't believe there are any recent changes to that. But please check the contractor resources website just to confirm that you're working from the latest version of the QA manual. There's a question came in about I'm going to read this as like penalties for solar companies that do not pay minimum wage. I'm not sure if that's reference to minimum wage or the prevailing wage requirements. Regardless, we do have posted our information about the prevailing wage adder information for workers who have a complaint or feel they aren't being paid the proper wage. I don't have that phone number off the top of my head, but it's the New York State Department of Labor. I'm not sure if it's if it's an issue of minimum wage or other potential problems. I'm not frankly sure if that's the right number to call, but I think in general it would be Department of Labor that can follow up on that and determine if there's a problem or anything related to that. Nope, looks like one more. Emily, I'm gonna go
Okay,
back to you for this last one.
okay, great. So this question is for the independent accountant report. Can a single letter covering the project construction be submitted? Not, I'm assuming that means like not submitting a separate report for each quarter. Um, so yes, we can take one independent accountant report for the entire project construction period. However, within the report, we do need the accountant to certify that the project did pay prevailing wage for each quarter. So we would like to see each quarter broken down in the independent accountant report, and we will make an update to the template to demonstrate what we're looking for shortly. Turn it back over to Max.
Okay. Looks like we just got a repeat question about the CEF Block 1 12.5 cent a watt incentive. So that is the SSFA adder. So a statewide solar for all project in CEF Block 1 or CEF Block 2 would receive the 12.5 cent a watt adder plus the prevailing wage adder plus any siting adder such as the brownfield or floating solar adder they're eligible for. So that's the incentive. There is for earlier projects in the megawatt blocks a 7 cent a watt SSFA adder. So that lower adder is what's available for those older projects. The higher adder is what's available for the two CEF blocks. However, in practice, the total funding that identical projects receive, it will be identical. The additional, and I'm sorry, I said 12 and a half, I meant 12. The additional 5 cents is, essentially making up for what had previously been a 5 cent a watt base incentive. And apologies that that's all very confusing and referring to different incentives and pots of money. Again, it's we have structured this to be in compliance with our most recent Public Service Commission order. There's a question that's kind of a hypothetical that so the question is if a New York utility fails to issue timely payment to host via the SSFA tariff, can a host disenroll from SSFA without New York Sun recapture risk? So I guess the answer is no. If you disenroll from SSFA, we will recapture the incentive. The incentive is just for SSFA. So if there is a situation with payments by the utilities, again, whether that's for SSFA payments or other CDG payments, there is a process with DPS, and there's a recent order about that. So that would be the step to take. Again, we will have to recapture the entirety of the incentive if you disenroll from SSFA. And again, that's for our most recent PSC order. All right, so it's the lines have gone quiet for a few minutes now. We haven't gotten any new questions, and we certainly covered a lot of ground. Please, if you have additional questions, you can always email the team. Finally, once again, this has all been recorded. The recording and the slide deck will be posted on the contractor resources webpage under the stakeholder updates section, and the program manual is now updated, posted online, and the Upstate ICSA dashboard that was referenced is also live online. The Con Ed dashboard will be coming soon, so you can certainly refer there to those sources for ongoing information. I'll close by saying thank you to everyone for joining and participating today, and have a terrific afternoon.